Hey guys, I'm here with Stephanie Douglas. We're going to be talking about just talent and success and all kinds of being gifted, just all of those nuances. And I'm just going to go ahead and hand it over to Stephanie, and she has some things to say.
Hi there. My name is Stephanie. I am a musician. I'm a music educator. I work in public schools. I'm interested in this. Oh my gosh, where did my chat go? Anyway, I'm interested in this subject for a couple of reasons. First of all, because I teach music, and music is something that is perceived by the general public as something that is usually only accessible to certain types of people who are talented. And I want to talk about the issues I have with that kind of mindset, and the arts in general. And I don't know, just thinking about ways that we can help the arts be more present in our lives without worrying about whether or not we are talented and what that even means.
Yeah. And I mean, even though I don't play a musical instrument yet, I definitely feel like there's so many versions of talent out there. There, like any field that you're in. For Stephanie, it's mostly about music, but just any field, there seems to be like, oh, these people are the special people, these people are the talented people, and then these people are like, and then this is everybody else. So like, oh, the top 1%. It's like, it's really silly, but yeah, go ahead, Stephanie, and talk about what you want.
And that's like, it's very, very exclusive, and it's difficult. It's difficult to make the case as a public educator that it does not have to be this way, because we have the knowledge and we have the experience that tells us that anyone can participate in music, anyone can participate in the arts, and that really the more important and the more, the more, oh, what's the word? Pertinent, I guess. Yeah, the moments that are going to be standing out in your mind when you're relating to art are not necessarily going to be that time that you went to a concert and consumed the art, or that you listened to a song and were affected by someone else's art, but the times when you are participating in it and in the making of it. Like times that you were, like, for example, in elementary music, they do a lot of line dances, and they do a lot of like drum circles and things where everyone can participate one little bit at a time. Like everyone's learning all the parts, and those are gonna stand out in a person's mind. Those kinds of experiences as times that they were included in something, and everyone got to make something together. It's difficult to get the public, or I guess the public meaning like policymakers, people who don't notice these things as things that can be beneficial to everyone. It's difficult to get people to understand that that's what we're fighting for. We're not necessarily fighting for more orchestras to be enjoyed, although that's a great side effect. We're not necessarily fighting for like more people glamorizing solo artists, although that's a nice side effect. Like, it's nice to know that we're building environments where that can flourish, but really people who are advocates for arts education, we're fighting for it to be accessible to everyone, like no matter what your background is, whether you can afford private lessons or not, including everyone, including like whatever you were born with, whatever base talents you were born with.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I don't know, like, I mean, my experience, I think about when I was younger, when I was included in different things, particularly in the arts. But I also remember, like, being in elementary school and having to try out for chorus. Like, I feel like that's a little bit that's like
hard.
that's like to me, like, and like the choir instructor was rejecting certain people. Like, I remember I tried out in 4th grade for chorus and I got it. But then my 5th grade chorus, I tried out and I was just too scared to try out because I felt so much pressure, and like I couldn't even sing. Like, I think it was Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and I like was so quiet that like the choir instructor couldn't hear me. It's like, and I got rejected from that. I remember that, and I remember how, you know, hard I took that because it's like I knew that I could sing. Yeah, it was weird.
That's what I do not want, because that's an exclusive practice. You know, it's you know, because choir and chorus singing in a group is an ensemble situation. It's not the same as singing a solo by yourself, because and a lot of musicians find strength in the group, and like a lot of times music educators lose sight of that. Social learning is a really important part of learning. Like, taking in what's around you and listening is a skill in itself. And sometimes we forget about that.
Yeah. I think it's crazy, just like in general, how I mean, people view that, because like, I mean, just in general, well, obviously you know this, that a lot of people in government or wherever, like even just in the education system, it's like they always just throw aside, you know, the arts. But also it's like within the arts, like to even have, I feel like for certain, not even just the arts, but just in general, different departments and different things, it's like they have to have this prestige, so they'll like emphasize that this person is, you know, better than other people, and I don't get that. So
yeah, that's a fairly exclusionary practice, I feel. And I don't think the arts should be like that. I think they should be inclusive of all abilities.
Yeah, I agree. And then here's Fleur, guys. I was just showing Stephanie before the live stream, and she has her kitty. Is your kitty still close by?
No, she walked away. She ran away.
Fleur just likes to sit on my lap.
Oh.
But of course, like I said, she like blends into my shirt. So
it just looks like you have a turtleneck with eyes.
I know. And then she just does. I just like to do this with her. Little Fleur. Oh yeah, she's playing like the piano. But so what would you like to see in the future change? Like, how would you like to see that change in the future? Or at least in the, like, what would be your short-term, medium, middle term, and long-term strategy?
Oh man, it's difficult. It's difficult to say because things are very different across all the different states in the US and across the whole world. In California, it's incredibly inconsistent. We don't necessarily have elementary music in every school district. Most high schools have a band and or an orchestra, but it's not as big as it is in other states. However, what I do see that is changing now that I like is the inclusion of alternative ensembles. Not necessarily band, not necessarily orchestra, but things like steel pan orchestras, like guitar class, like one of the high school that I live like 2 blocks from has a marimba club that's like, it's very, it's really specific to the culture of students that live here. It's really like Latin music based. We have mariachi groups popping up. So I see a lot of musical ensembles available for students who like might not resonate necessarily with like traditional like band, orchestra, choir, who might resonate better with other things that use different kinds of notation and different kinds of music making. So I like that. I think that taking it a step further would be to bring it to younger students, at least where I live, because we don't have a lot in terms of what's available to junior high and high school, or junior high, and definitely not that much in terms of elementary. That's difficult. And it's a difficult issue where I live because I live in California in a very quickly growing population. So, schools are very, very crowded. It took me 3 years in my district before I had a band room at one school. I used to teach in the cafeteria, so that's a step up to have a space.
Wow.
A space where I didn't have to talk over the floor cleaner. Like that was a real, like, it was an intense stressor. Like the first, 3 months of band was just getting kids used to the floor cleaner. And this year I'm seeing so much progress because the kids have their own space. And in my other school, they don't have their own space, but they have ownership over the setup and cleanup. Like they have, it's a classroom that's used for half the day, and then they move the furniture. They take responsibility for their seating arrangement and put the whole room together, and then they clean it up at the end. So just, in terms of growing in the right direction would be to provide a space for students who can participate in music and expanding the breadth of that, like not necessarily having it be band, maybe something that everyone can participate in at a very young age, as opposed to everyone starts in a 4th grade, because that's where we are right now. It's not terrible, it's something, but even better would be starting earlier, and even better would be having a dedicated facility and dedicated teachers that do that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I think the thing is, it's like, especially in homes, if you don't grow up in a musically inclined home, or even like an arts inclined home, you're probably not going to be as exposed to that, unless there's some type of, maybe you develop a friend or something that like pushes you in that direction. But like, for example, my parents, my mom's very creative in a different way than me, and my dad is a physician, so like he's emergency medicine, so obviously that's like more on the science and math side. But my parents never pushed me to do creative stuff, even though I was just naturally creative. I'm just like using Fleur as a but
she just doesn't care either. She's like, this is fine.
Oh yeah, no, seriously. I need to just like I want to do a video about like training my cats. Like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, like my cats, they are just like this is just normal. This is just like normal behavior. Like Fleur's like, oh, this just seems normal. This is okay.
So. My cats hate that. My cats are just like, no, don't hold me. I have cats. I do want to say something about background though, and I find this really fascinating because I realize that my musical background is it's different in the way that there are a lot of factors that predisposed me to absorb music really quickly, as a person, and it can make it look like I was pretty talented, but really I just was predisposed to a lot of things. The first thing was that my parents were both comfortable musically. Like they weren't formally educated with music, but they both were comfortable singing, and they were both comfortable. Like my dad played guitar, and they were comfortable with like dancing and having music being a thing, part of our world at home. And I think that was a factor that made it easy for me to just kind of explore how music moved. The other thing was that I started piano lessons when I was 9. And like we didn't have a piano. We just had like I had a tiny plastic keyboard. And that's what I practiced on. But I just like I was so curious about it. I really, really wanted to learn the language of music. I wanted to learn the how to read music. I just wanted to learn what made things sound good. So I was very, very eager to just sit down and learn that stuff. So I think that helped me succeed as a music major, even though I wasn't necessarily like, yes, I had an education, I knew about music theory, but I also felt a little bit like a country bumpkin in a lot of ways. It's like with music, I felt like the really non-educated educator. I have felt like that in a really in a lot of ways in my life. Like I felt like I have a education that's a lot further from what my parents had, and I don't know. Sometimes I find that conflicting, and sometimes I find it a relief that where I live, where I teach, it is a very new and expanding area, and there's not like I'm not like coming into some legacy of some prestigious marching band program. It's something that we as a team at my job are all working for. Like we're all just trying to figure it out and kind of like build it together. So that's kind of nice. and the world my students live in, I feel like they come from a very similar world. There's a big culture of mariachi and a big culture of like students who come from musical families where their parents play instruments, but they don't have a formal education. And so I feel like I relate to that. And I am so happy and eager to teach them, yes, a little bit about the language of music, but also like the written language of music, but also the art of listening and being able to play by ear and being able to hear something and know what it was, which comes a lot easier than people might expect.
Yeah. Well, I would say even like as a child, it would come even easier, just like how a language is, like a foreign language. If you develop those things at an early age, I mean, I personally think that, I mean, my philosophy in general about children and just like, I think whenever I have children, I want to basically just let them decide what they want to do and like basically expose them to everything. I mean, not everything, but like any kind of like science, math, art, music, all of that stuff. Like I really want to just have them so they can decide what they want to do and, make them well-rounded at a young age. They may not want to pursue music or they may not want to pursue science, but I think just having them do that, especially with the arts and music, it's like, because that's such a, like, a lot of people would be like, oh yeah, oh, your student or your child is studying science, that's awesome. But like a lot of parents, they don't really care about like the music side of it. Like my parents, for example, my dad really wanted me to play guitar, so he like wanted me to take lessons for guitar. But other than that, my parents really didn't push any of that onto me. And even like singing or like I said, like was singing, my mom. I mean, I love my mom. and I love my dad, but like my mom would just be like, if I said that I like wanted to be a singer when I grew up, she would just be like, well, no, you're not going to become a singer. So she wouldn't even listen to me, and she'd just say, she wouldn't even listen to me sing, and she'd just be like, you're not you don't have what it takes. like I'm not like bashing at my mom, but I would not say that to my child. I mean, I would be honest with them, but I would actually listen to them. And like, I feel like, you know, if whatever your child wants to do, you can make it. I mean, they can make it happen. I think there's certain things like, I don't know, but yeah, that's just a little bit of a rant.
Well, and I know a lot of people who, you know, they do sing professionally, but it's not their only source of income. You know, like people who sing locally, professionally, people who perform at night and they do something else in the day, and that's a great thing to have in your life. You know, it's not not like being a singer means that your life is American Idol and like, you know, you have to get a record deal. It could just mean that you have this place in your life where you do something that's different from, you know, just hanging out at home watching TV. You're like contributing to someone else's experience.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And also, everybody that wants to know if, yes, Fleur is a Tiffany cat. Also, people wanted to know how your arm was. And again, Fleur's still on me. We're best buddies.
You're so cute.
Little girls.
My arm's okay. I wanted to practice trumpet today, but I stopped myself because I was on painkillers. And I was thinking at the time, the pattern has been, I wake up and it hurts a lot. So I take two, like, yeah, I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, the pain. So I take 2 painkillers, and then I take like maybe 1 in the middle of the day after lunch, and then like 2 before I go to bed, and maybe 1 in the middle of the night. I have an alarm that just says drugs.
Oh my. That reminds me of when I got shingles. Like when I had shingles, I had to take so much medicine for that, that I like had so many alarms that I would have to wake up at like 4 a.m., 2 a.m., like 1 a.m. And I like had to take them at these certain times. So I did not get sleep, and yeah. But I know the alarm thing. It's like, woo, the drugs. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's like it's rough. It's kind of like I want to ease out of the painkillers, but I can't do it too fast because I know it will just hurt a lot. You know, and I was like, oh, I want to play trumpet, but then I realized like, oh, if I do that, then I'm gonna wake up in the middle of the night like, why did I do that?
Yeah,
because it's not that big of a motion. It's just a matter of like having my arm holding it up for a little while. So it'll probably be about a week, about another week before I can play. But that's okay.
I mean, that's pretty good.
The first time I was in a sling for 7 weeks, and it was very, very stiff. So right now this is like nothing. It's very mild compared to the first time, but it is still like, if for those of you who don't know, I had surgery. I had shoulder surgery last Friday, so I'm still pretty fresh off of it. It's only been 7 days, so I'm kind of just, you know, letting that pain kind of bypass as things heal.
Well, that kind of transitions into kind of more of a broad topic. I mean, we can always go back to, well, this is still touching on music, but I guess like your like surgery and stuff, I'm just gonna hold Fleur because like I think like, why not, guys? Let me do this so it's a little bit easier.
I see a comment from Nick, and I think like I absolutely agree. Like, you know, the time that you spend developing your skills in the arts they are not wasted. Like, it's not like your brain separates the things that it's doing. Like, every piece of dexterity that you develop in working on something creative and small, like, that transfers over to something else. Like, that is going to transfer over and give you an advantage in other skills. And
Oh, I agree. I agree.
yeah, INTP runner, like, absolutely, absolutely. I'm so on. Yeah, I'm of the same opinion too, because really, like, yes, there are some raw things that some people are a little bit more predisposed to, but it's about working on the skills. Like, that's really what it comes down to. Like, you work on yourself and you work on something that makes you better, and it puts you over the edge because you have spent so much time on it. And so, like, that happens to me a lot. I personally, as a musician, don't love it when I get comments that say that I'm talented. Like, I know what they're talking about and I appreciate it, and I know that it's coming from a nice place, but what it does is it dismisses the years and hours, whatever amount of time went into working on those skills. Like, it dismisses all that, all the education, all the investment that you've put into learning, what you've wanted to learn, just saying like, oh, it's because you're talented. But really, there's been so much time that goes into it.
Yeah. No, that's interesting that you say that, because I catch myself saying, oh, you're talented. Like, I feel like I've even told you that you're talented. I mean, I tell people, like, if I think they're really good, I'll say, oh, they're talented. But really, I mean, when I say that, it's not that I think, oh, this is like unattainable, and like, oh, this person, it's not like me trying to dismiss it, but at the same time, I can see that. And actually, it makes me want to like reframe how I say that to people, because
Oh,
yeah.
I've
But
thought before of making a video called like how to compliment musicians, because it's like things that I would want to hear. Like, I like hearing things that, like, references to specific parts, like this one part, that trumpet solo just made it so, like, I loved how you developed this. Or but people just don't have the kind of language to always say that all the time. So instead, if they don't feel comfortable with that kind of using that kind of language, which is understandable, um, you can also just talk about how whatever, the video, the music, the piece of art, how it affected you, how it made you feel. Like, I felt like this, it reminded me of this experience I had. Because I always want to know that too, because, sometimes I have people will say like, wow, that song made me smile, when I was actually thinking of a very depressing moment when I wrote a song. But I think and I'm glad to know and learn that something affected someone in that way. So, I mean, yeah, I think I will do a video like that, especially because I'm not playing instruments at the moment.
no, you definitely should. I think that applies even broadly, like, to things. That's kind of what I want to get into, is more of more speaking broadly about it. But um how would you say, like, growing up, your concept of, I mean, I know you were talking about how you felt like out of place, but when did people start telling you that you're talented or you're special? Like, when was that kind of a thing that started cropping up?
Um, this is an interesting, um, that's an interesting question, and it's an interesting issue that comes up. Because I did mention that I'm a GATE educator, and GATE stands for Gifted and Talented Education. Um, and one of the issues with kids that are designated as GATE, like, they test and it finds that they think divergently enough to handle certain kinds of, like, divergent education. Um, that is one of their most difficult issues. Like they're told, oh, they're gate, so so it makes it really hard for them. It makes it feel like they can't fail. Like that makes it feel like they're under pressure. Oh, if I fail, then I won't be smart anymore. People won't think I'm talented anymore. And I think that was maybe not so overtly, but maybe kind of inadvertently an issue for me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't tested. They didn't do a gate test because my school where I grew up was really small. But I got high grades. So that, they were like, "Oh, smart kid in gate program." And it wasn't like I don't think honestly, like I don't think I was brave enough to be an overtly divergent thinker. I don't think I really would have. But to answer your question, like going back to your question that I totally tangented away from, probably around middle school was because that's when I started getting pretty good at piano. And I was doing band and I was doing choir, and I, not on purpose, but was starting to learn how to read music while singing. And it wasn't like something I was doing like on my own, but as a piano player, I would look at the alto parts, the harmonizing parts, and be like, oh, I know how that's supposed to sound. Not, just put that together. And because I could do that independently, those kinds of things independently, like it kind of became like, oh, you're, musical, what, let's see, like, actually, for a very long time, because I didn't want to, this is the hardest part too, like, it's so hard to like approach what I'm trying to say because there's like a lot of factors to it. I had my toe in a lot of water, like, or what was it? Like, I had a lot of irons in the fire, like,
Yeah.
I had a lot of creative things that I did, that, I enjoyed. Like I wrote a lot and I journaled and I did art. I saw myself as like an art kid, played lots of instruments. I did lots of different things. And I think when I was in high school, I was afraid to get too good at any of them. Like I was afraid of failing. It was the gate kid syndrome where like you realize that things come easy to you, and then once they start getting hard, you get discouraged and like kind of run away from it. And then you come back to it later because it's just a thing you like to do. So yeah, there's that whole thing. and then it was in college when I actually had to pick a major and realized that I actually had to work hard and in practice a lot. That it kind of became like a realization that talent is not everything, and in fact it's very little. So
I think that was a very good synopsis of your like experience growing up and talent, or like especially towards the arts. But I guess apart from that, how even expanding it to other things, what do you think about talent? I mean, you touched on it, but what would you say for people that, in general, believe in the idea of talent? What would you tell them?
I I would say this. There are a lot of abilities that every person is born with a certain amount of abilities, and every person is born with a certain amount of disabilities, like things that they can't do yet or that they don't know how to do. And sometimes a lot of people are predisposed to finding certain things challenging. And here's the thing that I see, and this is how I explain it to students. Inside every person, there is a creature that has a million eyes, like an infinite amount of things that they can potentially see or learn. But different people are born with different eyes open. Like some people are born innately knowing how to find certain patterns, and certain people are born like finding things easier than other people, and it's easier for them to open those eyes. And then some people, it's harder to open the same kinds of eyes, the eyes that can see the same skill and find the same pathway. And that's okay. I would say if something is challenging, you have to do it more. Like if it's something that you want to do and there's a challenging step that keeps you from doing it, you just have to do it more. And that the more you practice opening those eyes, the less challenging it's going to be. Sometimes you might need maintenance work on that. And that is definitely like, that's something that I struggle with a lot of the time with like mental health or certain like thought patterns. I get into like some very negative thought patterns, but I do have to practice, you know, the exercises that keep the positive thought patterns eyes open, you know? It's just yeah, they're like people are predisposed to understanding and absorbing different kinds of knowledge differently, like sensory, auditorily, visual, you know, all the different types of intelligence, all the different types of ways to acquire knowledge. So yeah, that's what I would say. Like if there are, if it's, if you're having troubles with not finding an easy path to the thing you want to do, then all you have to do is figure out what eyes are closed. And you have to get there's usually teachers and educators and there's ways to get educated about doing those things, like ways to guide you to opening those eyes. That's why people take piano lessons. That's why you go to school, you learn how to do the things. And that's why you have parents, right? You're not born learning how to walk. You kind of do all the things that your world teaches you what you need to do. So
yeah. No, I think you explained that really well, because I like the idea of the eye theory of having, you are born with you have all of these eyes, and some of them are open and some of them are closed. And I think that you're exactly right when you say to push yourself if you really want to do something and it's not something that comes naturally for you. And this is the key thing, is like, I personally believe within reason, people are capable of doing anything. And I actually think that you can, I know there's a body of thought that people think that you should only work on the things that you're good at, and then don't focus on the things you're, yeah.
That's the opposite of what I think.
Yeah, there's a body of thought that believes that, and I get why they say that, but I think that is so limiting, because I think what you should instead say is work on the things that you want to, or you think that would improve you, or you know that even if it's not something that you necessarily want to do, but something that will improve you as a person, and but especially things you want to do. And this means that you may not be talented at these things. You may not have a natural gift for these things. For example, singing. If you really want to sing, you know, within reason, almost anybody can sing but they're going to have to put in a lot more work if they're just not naturally gifted at that. They're going to have to go to a voice coach. They're going to have to learn tonal things, like all kinds of different things. They're going to have to just work so much harder. But if you really want to do that, do it. Like you were saying, it's like, don't limit yourself.
And truly, like research has shown like 99% of children can sing. And the kids that can't, there are a few conditions called, like, there's one called amusia, where you don't have any sense of high or low pitch. You just can't hear it. There's a couple of conditions like that where, like, that's going to affect whether or not you can sing, but most children can. Most children can sing, and it is one of those things where it's easier to absorb that when you're a child. It's easier to absorb the patterns you hear as a child, and if those eyes are not used, they will close as an adult. Doesn't mean that they can't ever be opened again, but it means that it's going to be harder. It's going to be some challenge. It's going to take some work.
Yeah, and I mean, not only just singing. I mean, for singing, you may have a natural voice in some way, but then you want to sing a certain style, and this goes for other things in music, instruments. This goes for art. If you want to become better at drawing or painting or whatever the skill is, like, I feel like this is the time. We are so lucky to be alive right now because we have so many things at our disposal that we can just go online, like YouTube, and you can look up stuff for free and learn things. Like, yeah,
it's amazing. You can go online on YouTube and see, like, I saw this amazing child composer, singing her own Christmas song beautifully, playing the piano with her sister, harmonizing, beautiful. It's like, and like, where in the world would you ever be able to see that unless you lived with those children? But they can videotape themselves and put it online, and kids can see examples of that and go, wow, this is what's possible because I'm also that age. Yeah, I would guess it's very likely those children are homeschooled, and it's very likely that those kids are not getting a limited music education. They're probably practicing and getting very specific training every day. But it's amazing to see what's possible.
Exactly. And I mean, that's the thing. It's like, that's the key, what you just said about, like, those children, for example. So I have a friend, her name is also Emily, and she's also an INFJ, but she doesn't go on YouTube. But she is one of the best harpists, I think it's either in the country or in the world. Like, she was homeschooled. Whoa. I mean, why am I calling you Henry? You're not Henry, you're Fleurs. She was homeschooled, and she practiced so much, like a ridiculous amount every day. And she got so good that she got I think she either got I don't know if it's a full ride. I might be wrong about this, or she at least got some really crazy scholarships to go to Juilliard. And again, she's one of the best harpists in the US and even in the world, I think. And it's but that was because she put in so much work, much work.
It's work. It's not, it's great to, you have the conditions. It's amazing. It's an amazing advantage if you have the conditions. it's an amazing advantage to just be able to do that and practice that much. But people don't realize that it's not just that they're talented, it's that they have the conditions and that they're putting in the work. They're putting in so much work.
Exactly. And that's the thing. You have to decide what, like, this is the thing. You know, there's like a silly saying that, you know, everybody has the same amount of time. Beyonce, for example, Fleur, I just got these headphones. You don't buy these things. You don't buy these things, little girl. Sorry guys, I just love the Fleur. But it's like people will say something about Beyonce being like, I mean, basically, you have the same amount of time as Beyonce or whoever you look up to. This could be, I saw someone in the comments talk about Mozart. It's like he had the same amount of time as everybody else. But the thing is, it's like, how do you value your time? How do you distribute your time? And yeah, you can't do everything, but you need to decide not necessarily what you're good at, but what you really want to do. And obviously the things that you're good at, they're going to come more naturally to you. So you're not going to have to spend as much time on them, but it doesn't mean that you don't spend time on those things.
Yeah.
So
Save the Bees brings up exactly what I was thinking too. It's not only time, but money. And that's kind of a tricky subject too. I mean, it's very much a privilege thing. And I mean, as a public educator, like that is something that concerns me directly. It's something that I think about all the time because I have students that they share a bedroom with like 3 other kids. You know, it's not like they can go home and take a flute lesson and practice for 6 hours. You know, they have a baby brother, they're going to wake up or whatever. They all have like these. I have a lot of students with very chaotic lives going on. So then the question comes like, yes, this is going to be a situation that they have in their lives, but, and so like in my role as an educator, as a person who's going to try to bring music to these kids and let them have this experience, like they need the space. Like they really need the space and they don't have it at home. They can't have it at home. Like their parents, you know, they do everything for their kids, but they can't afford private lessons for all their kids. You know, it's one of those catch-22 things. So that's where I think, you know, I find it a little bit like morally strange sometimes. Like it doesn't sit so well with me sometimes. Because there is that limited access. It's not every single person that's going to be able to have that in their lives. And it's a reality. It's too bad. Oh my gosh, my dog, so bad. She was just like poking her nose through the door. She's not supposed to be upstairs. So it's one of those things like, and there, you know, there's that mention of Mozart too. He had a very distinctive advantage in that he came from a family of musicians. He was born and bred in those conditions. And yes, his father was very, very strict about his practice time. But yeah, and Siham, that's absolutely a good solution. There has to be more in terms of communal music making. Like there has to be more, I think, resources for people who want to make music in their lives, but it's not a reality that they're going to be a professional musician. Like that's kind of what I mean, that's just how it goes. Like, and that's why I'm grateful for things like community music ensembles, the community jazz band I play in on Tuesday nights. I absolutely love it. It's a chance to make music with people on Tuesday nights, and we're all like playing together, and it's, you know, it's great. There's nothing so at stake, you know. It's like, yes, we're working to be the best musicians we can, but it's also a safe place to make lots of mistakes. If, you know, if things go awry, like we're not going to get fired, you know.
No, that makes sense. And like, talking, kind of going back to what you said about like people not having the resources financially. I mean, that really is, it is a catch-22 in many ways. And, but the thing is, going back to, well, especially when they're children, having the resources, like the public resources of education, and like it's like that's where it really matters. It matters the most to those kids that can't afford those things, so they need to have those things at school, or at least be exposed to it, so that, you know, even if they only have um even if they have like a borrowed instrument from school, and the only thing they have to instruct them is YouTube. Because at this day and age, even people that live in severe poverty for the most part will have some type of access to technology, which is, it just makes things so much better than what it was in I mean, even just like 10 years ago. But it still doesn't say that, oh, they have it so much easier now. Like, it's still hard.
It's a big step, though. Like, it's a big step to making things more accessible, like more to making, you know, a global culture more accessible, to making people feel like they're part of something. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's very cool. And I have to say, like, I have really, really enjoyed exploring my own musicianship on YouTube, because like that has been just a totally different thing for me. I started my channel in March, and I just like I was like, "Oh, I need to just have a place where I can create something every week. Like, I can write a song every week, and I can, you know, I'll practice my trumpet and put trumpet things up, and that'll give me an excuse to practice my trumpet." So just to be able to have that thing, that like extrinsic accountability, like that is not something that, you know, if the internet didn't exist, I would not have been doing that.
Yeah.
I would not have, like, there would have been nothing holding me accountable for that.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, that's something I really like about technology in general, and just like, well, just YouTube in general is so you can just connect people and build off of ideas from other people, and have like, if you're in a situation where you're not in the best financial situation, especially children, like children are so, when it comes to YouTube and just the internet and stuff, it's like that's even more second nature than people our age. It's like, it's crazy. Even if they're not exposed to it, like they don't have an iPad when they're 2, they're at least going to be coding in school. A lot of schools, they're already coding like as in elementary school, which is crazy. So yeah.
And then we compare like composing music to being a little bit like a code too, because you either have sound or you have no sound, and then your sound, is it high or low? Is it, how many beats is it? Like, there's like that whole other part of it, the composition aspect of it, that's so creative, or has the potential to be so creative and so like problem solving oriented. But it's interesting because it's, you know, there's a lot of logic involved, but it's also creative. It's using both parts of the brain.
Yeah.
You know, not that they're not actually, I mean, science, the research I've read says that they're not actually separated so much as, you know, traditionally they've been thought to be, you know, left and right brain. They very much are connected. But, you know, the fact that both kinds of tools can be used in music composition is really powerful for children.
No, I agree with that. So I feel like there might be some questions, actually.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of questions.
Yeah, if you want to answer anything.
Lucid dreaming is something that I've only done once, and I think I was like 8 years old when I realized I was in a dream. I don't have a whole lot of dreams. I don't dream very regularly, and when I do, I just like I had a dream last night that was very vivid, and I just completely accept it as reality. So I have not done that before. Do
That's
I have
interesting.
a style?
I do
Um,
want to comment on the dream thing because I have vivid dreams whenever I go to sleep. So I have lucid dreams almost every night. And even if I take a 20-minute nap, I have a vivid dream that feels like reality. So it's really weird. I don't know if I have some type of weird skill, but I mean, I don't remember the details because I literally have a vivid dream every night. Like I dream every single night and it's very vivid. I don't know what that means. And also, I have a popsicle. So, sorry, go on with what you're saying.
um, yeah, let's see. I was musical style. I usually go for something mellow. Like I'm not a heavy beats person, although, there are definitely specific moods that I can be in that where I like want to rock out. But I would say I like acoustic music more, or just mellow music. I like things with a really like I like things with a lot of melodic contour. It kind of if there are songs that don't change notes a lot, I kind of even if the words are clever, I just don't think they're as exciting, and I don't think they're as easy to hear for myself. So that's kind of my style. Let's see. I saw one because I wanted to address applied cognitive science, emotional intelligence, mental models, or self awareness. I will say those are being taught in schools. Those skills are very much overtly being taught to small children, at least where I teach, because those are really important for getting to it's impossible to actually learn stuff if the kids aren't being taught that, if they're not being taught about emotional intelligence or awareness or how to use words to talk about their feelings, then they're not going to be able to learn how to read and write. So that it very much is being taught in at least where I teach. Um, let's see. And I was gonna say, yeah, I know that everyone dreams every night. I know. I didact or whatever. I take away that statement that I said before. I used to dream very vividly, but I probably have not so much. The thing that stopped was when I started taking antidepressants. Probably stopped helping me remember my dreams, but you know, that's okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Um, oh man. Yeah, it's education has changed a lot, INTP runner. I would say even since I became when I started student teaching, it was like, what is all this social learning stuff? And I was a little bit intimidated by it, but I also found it extremely effective. Like we had the same techniques being used on us that we were supposed to learn how to use, which was social emotional learning practices. Like we would be given a prompt about the content and then discuss the content with peers. Like that's what they want. And it's a very effective way to learn. But being, of course, raised more introverted, or at least more naturally introverted, and then raised in the system before, where you just could write stuff down and didn't matter. Yeah, it was very different. But yeah, as a teacher, as an educator, I find that much more effective to give kids a chance to talk to each other and relate to each other. And You know, if they're responsible, they can choose who they talk to. They can choose who they sit next to. I don't care if they're not being disruptive, which they respect. They're being respectful. If I could change anything about the American school system, I would say generally, well, the thing that I would change fundamentally is smaller class sizes. But the way that you do that is pay teachers more. Like, teachers don't want to stay, or that, you know, schools can't afford to pay more teachers if, you know, that's kind of what it is. Like, smaller class sizes give us so much more space to get to know the kids and get to know what they really need. And because kids do have different needs, kids do have different abilities, and they're going to learn better under different kinds of conditions and different, like, if there are more teachers available to teach smaller groups, then yes, it's going to be more likely that they get what they need, as opposed to larger sizes with fewer teachers. Let's see, what else? I'm not going to answer that political question.
That's funny.
You'd probably know just based on the things I'm saying, but yeah, I'm not going to say. But maybe not. I don't know.
I do want to say, I mean, so I don't know if I think I have talked about this. We're not gonna talk about politics, but I didn't vote for either Hillary or Trump when in the election. I actually voted for Oprah Winfrey, which is kind of, I know some people would be like, oh, you threw away your vote. But that aside, I actually have a pen, like a pin to put on your shirt or a backpack or something, that my friend got me. And it says, cats against Trump. And then don't try to grab me. So, I mean, that aside, I just thought it was really funny. But I feel like I'm not super, even though my major was international affairs, and I know a lot about politics. I wasn't super into domestic politics, but that aside. Anyways, moving on from that, I just thought that was funny.
Yeah, actually, Esther, that was me too. That was me too. I did not like I didn't like recess. I didn't like the other kids in school. I really prefer to school, but I mean, that doesn't mean that I didn't need it, you know? I felt like I was very misunderstood for a lot of my life because I hadn't developed those kind of skills for a lot, you know, until I was in college. I didn't really have the kind of collaborative skills that, you know, I still struggle with a lot of those things sometimes. It takes a huge amount of effort to work on collaborative skills, and those are 21st century skills. Like, those are necessary skills. You know, even though I didn't like it, it doesn't mean it's not good for you, you know?
That's so funny because, like, I was not like that at all. I feel like I mean, I loved recess, and I liked pretending and playing with kids. Like, I loved other kids, even though I was really, well, I didn't like every kid, but like I really liked playing with other kids and stuff. And actually, when I was really young, I had like a good amount of friends in elementary school, and I remember like kids wanted to be friends with me. Like, the kids that ended up being popular in high school, they wanted to be friends with me, but like I remember like year by year, I kind of was just like, I don't know about this person. So I just like stopped being their friend. I mean, I wasn't like friends with them. I was just like school friends. And then I just like only went for the people that I really felt like, you know, I was able to have like a deep connection with, but that's beside the point. So.
I have no idea what the types of my closer friends from school age were. I have a feeling, like thinking about it now, and I'm thinking about like my one friend that was maid of honor in my wedding. Um, we had so much in common. She was probably also an INTJ. Um, but I don't know. I am not that versed in typing other people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm like really hesitant to say those kinds of things. I would say my husband is like extroverted feeling all over. Like he is like the king of extroverted feeling, and I think he's a sensor as well, but I don't know ESFP or ESFJ or whatever. I don't know which one he is.
That's interesting. Because like in socionics, they say that which like if you were an INTJ and in socionics you would be an INTP. Well, again, not everybody believes that it transfers over, but your conflictor would be an ESFJ if that was the case, but your perfect match would be ESFP.
Oh.
So, which is your dual. I really do want to talk about socionics. Like, I really want to get into the different things about it. But yeah, that's beside the point. So
I
it would
don't
be really
know if I'm
interesting.
reading on it, but there's not a book on Amazon about it.
Yeah,
So
I don't know.
probably just online somewhere.
It's a bunch of like you really have to comb through a lot. I mean, I've talked about this, but like when you look through socionics material, it's like some of the stuff doesn't even make sense because it was translated or transcribed by people that either English isn't their first language or they're just like literally copying they're copying like Russian words or into English or something. It's yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I question from Michelle. He does balance me. He is like, although sometimes I like I was having trouble with this last night. He is very like he's like a little kid who needs attention. Sometimes he's definitely a little brother. Like he was definitely the kid that like was like, look at this thing I did, like and I'm like when I'm like trying to like watch a video or read a book or like do a thing, and he just like does these weird things and expects me to notice. And I'm like, you just want attention. And he's like, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. Well, it is funny how like different personalities are just like it would be really interesting to know what your husband's personality is actually. I'd actually really like to know that.
Yeah, I can bring him
Maybe
on.
we could go on a journey.
Yeah. Let's see. Traits of my best students. I would say I absolutely have like a huge spot in my heart for students who struggle but stick with it. Like that is, you know, those kids I root for. Like I love them. I love them to pieces. And all my students are like this, and I usually talk to them collectively as a group because they're learning collectively as a group. Like I don't test every individual kid because I have like 50 kids in a class sometimes. So I can't hear everyone all the time, but there are definitely kids that I notice struggling um, at first. And then when I see them at the end of the year, I absolutely like I adore that they're still there because sometimes I don't know. Sometimes kids quit and because it's hard. Band is hard. And I tell them that all the time. I'm like, you guys, band is hard. Sometimes we're not ready for it yet because learning an instrument is you're not always ready for it. Like sometimes you have to wait until a couple of years, and that's okay. But if they stick with it, I love that. I adore that. So those are my favorite kind of students. The ones who work.
The ones that actually put in the time and effort and
Yeah.
yeah. No, I agree. I feel like I could have been a very frustrating child for you to work with. Just because I was so shy, but also like I feel like I was naturally good at different things and I didn't push myself enough because I just didn't have that level of push from my parents to, I was pushed in certain areas. Like for example, I was always expected to do well in school, but like when it came to that kind of stuff, I would just kind of not glide by, but like, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I was a little bit like that too. Like things are just a little bit easy for me in school. And
yeah.
that's why sometimes I don't think a conversation by me about talent is always fair. Because there's a lot of things that make it look like I was pretty talented and things came easy for me. And there are some very specific advantages that I had, like culturally, like that made school easy for me. But yeah, but it's still it's an important conversation to have.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. So, do you have anything else you want to touch on for now? Or do you want to call it a night?
This has been a great conversation.
Yeah, we've talked about a lot. I feel like there's just so much more we can talk about because, like, I mean, we kind of focused more on um, the arts and stuff, but even just in general, like, I think there's just so much. Anything, I mean, we talked about this too, but like anything you do, it's like, it doesn't matter what it is. You can see someone as talent. And oh, this is something I wanted to touch on that kind of irks me. And it's like, and I get it because it can seem like this, but when people are seen as overnight successes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's always so much work that and foundation laying that has gone into everyone. Yeah, I agree. Um, I guess my final thought, like with that in the more broad sense, is yeah, so much about self-improvement is about mindset
Yeah.
and about you being able to understand your struggles and work on those things that you struggle with. And suddenly, it's just so much practice. Like you practice those things that you're not good at, and then those things that you're not so good at become things that you're okay at. And then you start, I mean, what happens with me is when I start to practice things that I'm not so good at, I start to see things that can be improved in other areas that, I thought I was good at before. I start becoming more aware of where I was falling short before, and maybe not necessarily like bad at, but it's just a constant being a musician is so fluid. Like there's constant refinement, there's constant having to work on basic skills, and there's like that's always what it is. And any kind of discipline that you partake in, like running, like you're always working on your basics, you're always working on the things that make you go, the things that your most important fundamentals. So,
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And I feel like the cool thing about this video is like, I mean, we were talking about doing a video like this, but again, it wasn't like we rehearsed really anything. And I feel like people will be able to look at this video, and I, especially in the future, just kind of looking back on this, especially for us to look back on when we, even like in a few years to see like where we are. So, oh, is your husband there?
Yeah.
False salad for you.
Oh, thank you. He brought me food.
Oh, yummy. Hey.
Oh, he left. Oh, but my kitty came. So
Yay. Aww.
yeah, say hi to.
Now we got kitties.
She's a little less, although she doesn't mind this too much, I don't think. She's kind of like, what is this? Yeah, I don't know. I've wanted to have him on a video once or twice, just doing like something silly, but you know, I think it's like not really his thing. So maybe someday.
Yeah, I get that. I have friends that don't want to do videos, like, and I respect that because not everybody wants to do it. And I mean, again, it's like maybe in the future. It is weird to put yourself out there online, and I can understand why it wouldn't be someone's thing to do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I know, she's a pretty cutie.
Yeah, she is.
She's getting all comfortable in my lap now.
Oh, that was like Fleur at first. Which I don't even know where Fleur is. Oh, there she is. There's my baby girls. The baby girls is back. But I think we should call it a night.
Yeah, this has been great. So thank you for watching, everyone. Thank you for listening. And I hope that I was able to contribute. Ooh, yeah, butternut squash. Wait.
Oh my gosh, that's huge.
I thought you were gonna eat it.
I'm gonna eat it right there. Yeah, I mean, I hope that you know, this conversation has contributed to many people's concept of talent, or you know, at least giving you something to think about, or something.
Definitely. Oh yeah.
Something like, well, yeah, just like maybe something to put into practice. I don't know. That can be the next conversation, the next chapter. Like, how do we put these into practice?
Yes.
Like, think about that.
I mean, I feel like that's hard because like people just want to know where to start, and consistency can be very difficult. Yeah, and I know that just like from YouTube, and I mean, you know that as well from YouTube, and
the amount of directions is very overwhelming. Like you can see like so many places where you need to improve that, you know, just picking one, and if it's not the right one, it can be really scary. But yeah, definitely.
Well, I hope you guys are having a great night or morning or afternoon wherever you are. And Floris says goodbye. She's just Floris like, okay, Emily, you've done this too much.
Gabby also says bye.
Oh, the kitties.
Gabby's like, you pick me up one more time, I will leave your lap.
I'm probably going to be sneezing tonight. It's okay. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.